Well, welcome to part 2 of our video when we launched from KP Hole and ended up getting stuck in a pretty decent storm. We started off, the first half of the day was sunny, it was gorgeous, it was super hot, nothing in the forecast, but about a quarter of the way through, clouds started to form in front of us and off to our right, and about halfway down the river was when it actually started raining and didn't really let up much. There was a couple times before where it would just sprinkle a little bit and then nothing major, but this second half, it was definitely an interesting adventure, to say the least. There was a ton of rain, lightning and thunder was going on. What was interesting was all of the people who just are still in the water, like no big deal. It honestly reminds me of, growing up in San Diego, we'd have earthquakes and fires and that type of thing. And anybody who's never experienced an earthquake gets really scared for, we called them tiny tremors. They were nothing. But to us, was nothing really to get freaked out about. But somebody who's never experienced it would be terrified. And so that's kind of how it was for us when we moved to Texas. Tornadoes were new to us. That really freaked us out. In Florida, obviously you have hurricanes and you have thunder and lightning storms and that type of thing. So to be obviously in a body of water with lightning and thunder going all over the place, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. I actually thought it was a really neat experience. I was pretty excited about it. I've never been in, a situation kayaking. We did get stuck one time before tubing down the river, but it wasn't anything bad. It wasn't, pouring on us. A couple times through the video in these clips, it would stop for a few minutes and then it would start back up again. So we were trying to make it down to Blue Run, which is the boat ramp across from Swampy's on the bridge, as quickly as possible. And my son and his best friend were going to be picking us up down below. Unfortunately, the stronger the storm got, the harder it was to actually row and get down a little bit quicker. So this group of people in the front of us, it was interesting to see them when we came up to this point over on the right hand side. There were a ton of jet skis and they were just off their jet skis, just enjoying, the river and enjoying the rain that was coming down. It wasn't a cold rain. So it did feel good. It definitely cooled you off. The temperature had dropped a little bit compared to what it was before. And it was also funny to just talk to people who were, we'd come up next to, were in tubes, and, they would talk about they were trying to get down as well. So to see these poor people in tubes and they're trying to use their hands to row and get down the river faster was pretty interesting. So if you look off to the right in this video, you'll just notice that the clouds get darker. You'll notice the rain starts coming down a little bit harder. It had kind of thinned out when we were going down. There were people who were either getting off on the side. They had stopped at the boat launch, or not the boat launch, I'm sorry, the tube launch, and got out about halfway through. We were still having to go all the way down because that's where we were getting picked up at. So in between getting rained on, it still was neat to be able to see, the otters in the river. This time we saw some, and the turtles. This trip, we only saw one baby gator, but that was it. We did see a bunch of birds and cranes and other animals. That was pretty cool. Also, at one time in this trip, it was so funny. There was a huge bird that was flying right on top of the water and was coming straight at my husband, and I swore that thing was gonna just nail him, and he ended up moving at the very last second. But over on this section to the left, there was quite a few tubers over here that were trying to get back. Some of them were just kind of relaxing, and then other ones you can see to the left, they were trying to paddle as quickly as possible to get down. because at this point in time, the rain is getting a lot heavier. The water is getting a lot choppier. You can see, I mean, it's just coming down on us right now. We were so soaked. And by this point in the trip, it actually hurt to have it hit you because you've got the speed of the kayak trying to come down, and your kayak's, you know, going back and forth, and you're rowing super hard, but the rain is coming down so hard, it ended up being a flash flood. And it started to get actually kind of painful. So we were really trying to get back as quickly as possible because it was becoming more and more difficult and just more and more painful as time went on. Now, what was interesting was it started out as small little pockets of clouds and rain, and they kind of joined together and just made a big one that came right across us. And in the process, it looked like it was cloudy in the video, but that was just actually the rain and how much was coming down and how quickly. So at this point, we're getting much closer to Blue Run. We know that we've only got about 10-15 minutes left to paddle before we get there, and it was just downpouring. We ended up seeing a couple more people while we were trying to get to the end, and once we get down to the bottom area was when it really started to get a lot more crowded with people who were trying to get out of the river. This is definitely a time where it would have been nice to actually live on the river and we could have just gotten out. These people cracked us up to the left. They were just sitting there like nothing was going on. And my husband ended up waiting for me for a second because I was trying to fix my camera as we were going down because it kept wanting to go sideways. And you can see a couple of times where I'm trying to fix it and tighten it up. So on this corner to the right is one of my favorite houses on the river. It's beautiful and it sits right on the corner. The house is so gorgeous, and the property where it's at is pretty neat because the water just comes right up to the grass. So there's a couple people, there was a couple tubers to the right of us in front of that house that were, I think, trying to figure out what to do and where to go because they just kind of sat there and then they ended up taking off again and heading down. But there's a couple people who were trying to figure out, you know, do they just kind of stay in the river and wait the storm out, or they try to get down? And, you know, again, it was pretty sad to see the people that were stuck in tubes and didn't have anything to help them row because it takes a long time. If you start at KP Hole and you tube down to Blue Run, it actually takes about 4.5 to 5 hours depending on the current that day. So these poor people were going all the way down and it takes a long time. So you can, you know, potentially get yourself in a pretty dangerous situation if you can't get out of the water quickly. So as we start to come in, we start to see more and more tubers trying to get down the river. And, you know, of course, all of us are laughing and talking during the process because everybody's trying to get down as quickly as possible. And by this point, we're just soaked. I mean, the inside, you know, of the kayak has a ton of water. We're soaking wet. And thankfully, we're coming to the end of the journey. Up on the right-hand side, that's where Swampy's is. And now you'll start to see it gets a little bit more crowded. These poor people in the tubes to the left of us, they were trying so hard to get up there and keep going. And we were joking around with them. It was pretty funny. So here's the bridge. This is where you actually go through and then you exit at Blue Run on your left-hand side. So there was people, by this point, the thunder and the lightning was pretty crazy. And there was a lot of people who had stopped underneath the bridge because if you get out at Blue Run, there's not really a place to sit and wait that's out of the elements. So I'm not sure if they were waiting for rides or what was going on, but we finally get underneath the bridge and pull up to the dock. And then we ended up having to wait about 15 minutes outside for our son Dylan and his best friend Dean to get there because they were coming through and it was a flash flood from where the house was to come pick us up. So at this point, you know, people are just trying to get outside of the water, pull their kayaks up, and this was the drive home. So thanks so much, guys, for watching. We really appreciate it. Make sure that you hit the like button and the subscribe button and then click the bell so you can see all of our videos. And please please let us know what you thought in the comments and if you've ever found yourself stuck in a storm on the water as well.